was there from the street.
Oh, I know. Go right ahead there, Pops.
Distinguished guests are seated. We will begin with the program. The dancing girls will be first.
We got a deal on that one.
And unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, my lovely, charming daughter, if you don't believe it, you ask her, is going, I beg your pardon, is going to make the introductions. Carol Marie Hartson Shinson.
Thank you. We certainly want to welcome everyone and thank you for coming to join us on this special occasion. So, as instructed by my father, which I'm sure none of you are very surprised that there are instructions from my father tonight, I'm going to go around the room and introduce all of the special people here. First, young Father Peter Escalante, who's been a family friend for some time, 25 years, from St. Bridget's Parish. Thank you for coming, Father Peter. Next, we have family friends Jim and Barbara Alexander, who are now living on a ranch near Carson City, Nevada. Thank you for coming down. And Uncle Paul, we have to congratulate with his new wife, Elizabeth. Thank you very much.
Hey!
And my Aunt Dorothy Sisson, who is shortly going to have a 90th birthday.
Wow.
And
Wow.
actually, she does not look it, and none of us would believe it, but I understand it's true. This is true? Oh, 4 more months? That wasn't very fair of him to call you 90 already. Next, these are my dad's sisters. Oh, all 3 in a row. Dad's sisters. This is my Aunt Marion Willitson, who is also my godmother. Lived in Oregon for a while, but saw the light and came back to San Diego. Right? My Aunt Eleanor and her husband Jack. My wonderful cousin Jana and her husband Harold. My other wonderful cousin Gilbert and his wife. This is the new Carol Hartson. I was Carol Hartson for a long time. Now she's Carol Hartson. She's skinny, she plays tennis, she's beautiful. It's the new Carol Hartson, I like that. Next we have Gary and Gary's in-laws, Bob and Jane Brulette, otherwise known as Alana's parents. And this would be Alana, who married my brother 20 years ago. Thank you, Alana. Thank you for coming tonight. My younger sister, Bonnie, who will never fail to tell you how many years younger than me she is. No, quite a few, I'm afraid. And her good friend, Gordon Johnson. Thank you. And next we have other wonderful, beautiful, wild and crazy cousin Kate. And her friend, Jack. Thank you for coming. Now, I'm sorry, but we need to pause for a moment of reverence while we all salute my son, Michael.
Yay, Michael!
Who came from San Francisco to be here tonight. Grandpa said that I should do that. He actually gave me permission to do that. Okay. And Mike's dad, Harry Jensen. And we have other wonderful family friends, John and Ingrid Ronas and their friend Mel. Oh, I'm sorry. I know, John and Georgia Ronas and friend Mel. I'm sorry, I was getting a little ahead of myself. Thank you. Oh, am I in trouble now? Now we have John and Ingrid Buno, who came from Oakland. Thank you very much for coming down for the special occasion. And longtime wonderful family friends, Lou and Billy Cornick and their son Peck. Now, I would like to...
That's enough.
And Billy. Now I would like to ask Father Peter to please give the blessing for the meal.
You can remain seated, thank you. Bob and Juanita, it's a great pleasure. I know all of us share the sentiment of how special a 60th anniversary celebration is. It's a rare occasion, and certainly a special one, so thank you on behalf of all of us for including us. Let us bow our heads to be aware of the presence of God that we are so grateful for. Heavenly Father, it is in a spirit of joy and gratitude that we gather to celebrate 60 years of married love. We thank you for the many blessings that you have bestowed upon Bob and Juanita over these years, for their family, for their friends, for the health that they have enjoyed. We ask you this night to continue to bless them, to be with them and strengthen them in the days ahead. We ask your blessing upon each person that is gathered here and are grateful for the ways that they have touched each other's lives. Bless the food that we share, the hands that will prepare it, and for those who are less fortunate than we are. And we make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Yes, I forgot to say that my dad reminded me that Father Peter did so well with the invocation 10 years ago. At the 50th anniversary, we asked him back tonight. And the price was right. Would you like to say something now?
Well, the only thing I wanted to say was the notice of our anniversary was last Sunday, and since that time we received about 150 wonderful anniversary cards, and they're very much appreciated. But there was one that really stands out. I couldn't bring all those cards, but the one that I did want to bring was from a friend of mine that I went to Hoover High School with. One of my closest friends. And he didn't even know Juanita because, like you say, we went to different schools together. But he wrote her a card, and I would like to read it for you now. I don't really understand it. I don't really understand the card because I don't think he had time to get a real anniversary card. But anyway, it's the thought that counts, so I'll just read the... on the outside of the card, it says, "A prayer of heartfelt sympathy." Juanita, you should know that we are here for you in this time of sorrow. They say the two greatest martyrs of all times are Joan of Arc and Florence Nightingale. Well, let me tell you something. You rank right there with them. Love, Jerry Davison. You know Jerry Davison, don't you, from Hoover High School. So I thought this was one of the nicest cards. Anyway, I don't know if we should go eat or want me to babble on for a while. Bonnie's going like that, so I guess that means we're going to go eat. And then I'll babble on a while later. So should we go order the drinks? Everybody have a drink?
Honor couple first, and then we'll have them pour the wine in. Okay?
Order what you say it.
They will pour the wine.
Oh, okay.
All of them. Okay? Okay. Okay, Mother, you go right up. Follow along.
I'll leave some.
Oh, I got it. Yeah, here, you better take the camera. I gotta go turn the mic on.
Take it, where do I take it, up to him or?
No,
No, back here?
look through it.
Point at him. look through it.
We gotta have that on tape, Martin.
I don't see anything. Oh, I'm looking at out here?
Yeah.
Oh. I don't look at this thing up here.
Well, you can. You should be able to do
I
both.
can't see anything through it.
Probably your eyes.
It's completely blacked out.
I'm sure you noticed our beautiful sign.
Well,
And this sign was
Fine.
given to us by my eldest daughter.
I just look right here,
daughter.
don't
But the thing about it is, it was not given to us for our 60th wedding anniversary. Given to us for our 50th wedding anniversary. So I was looking at it about a month ago, and I said, hey, you know what, Mom? I just figured a way we could save $100. How's that? She said, well, we just need a little gold paint, a little black paint, and a little white paint. And she said, well, what do you want white paint for? Well, you know, the 5 like that, we have to take the top off of the 5 with the white paint. And then you doodle around a little bit with the black and the gold. It's not too bad. I mean, you know, every $100 helps.
The 60th to get the paint
Incidentally, true story.
up and changed it.
Is that close enough? Hasn't changed a bit.
Party's over. Listen to your wife, Bob. Listen to your wife.
Anyway, I wanted to say a couple things about, that are in my memory from the last 50 years, and I think I can almost say positively that it would have to be about golf, because golf has been a major part of my life for the last 50 years, and she would say, boy, you can say that again. So, about, sometime back in the 50s, we went down to Mexico City to visit a friend of ours for a couple of weeks, and when we came back, somebody said, well, how was Mexico City, Juanita? Oh, it was wonderful. I didn't see the Shrine of Waterloo, and I didn't see all the museums, and I didn't see all the beautiful cathedrals, but I saw every damn golf course in Mexico City. True story. And I didn't really know anything about golf until I was about ready to join the Army. So the first, as you would say, they took me kicking and squealing. The first place we were stationed was in Illinois in the wintertime. And the first chance I got a pass, we went to a golf course. And the fact that it was about 40 degrees and it was kind of half misting and half snowing didn't deter a real golfer. So as I got on the first tee with my driver, I'm all ready to tee off. She's sitting about 50 feet away in the car reading a newspaper. I said, Juanita, would you watch me, please? Damn it, watch me. So she put the newspaper down and she's watching. And here I am with this slippery club, and I took the most beautiful swing I could possibly take. I don't know where the ball went. In fact, I don't even know if I hit it. But the club flew out of my hand and ended up in a tree. True story. She didn't know anything about golf, but she had heard of Ben Hogan. So she rolled down to the window and she said, have you had enough, Ben? True story. Then a couple other things that kind of stick out in your memory was, in 1954, I tried to talk my brother-in-law, Gordon Comer, who had a dairy over in Sugar District, to join the country club. I had joined here in 1951. So I got him over here as they were playing the first San Diego Open of all the pros. And Gordon and I walked right down that hill to the fourth green, where Dr. Terry Middlecoff was standing over a 2-foot putt. Now, I'll guarantee you that he stood there for at least 30 seconds and then he missed the putt. And Gordon looked at me and said, "Are these the professionals you're talking about?" And then about 6 months later, after he had played, he joined the club. He said, "You know, Bob, I know why he missed that putt now." So that's something that a real golfer understands. That somebody that doesn't play golf doesn't understand how you can miss a 2-foot putt.
Easy.
Well, anyway, after that, Mr. Pino and I, the guy in the flashy coat right there, used to have a regular game every Sunday morning back in the 50s, right down there in the first tee. And we had a couple of guys that we used to beat them pretty bad. You probably remember their names, can't you, John? Anyway, one of them lived up past me, and he found out that John and I went to Mass before we played golf, and we were beating him pretty bad. So he wanted to know if he could go to Mass with us, because he thought that was a golf game, which it did not. And that didn't work too well, because he sat in the back of church reading a newspaper, and people were complaining about the noise. So anyway, I told him I would pick him up this one morning, because he lived about 3 or 4 blocks from me, at 6:30, and I was a little late. So I had a couple of young kids working for me, and I told them to go up and pick this old geezer up in the ambulance. And now he's not going to want to get on the cup. I want you to put him on the cup. I don't care how you do it. Yes, sir, Mr. Hartson, yes, sir. So they took the ambulance up there. I went up about 2 minutes later and I saw him wrestling with to get him on the cot. He knows who. Anyway, I can really think of about 1,000 more things. But one thing that I will tell you was I thought was pretty funny. There were 4 old guys who used to play every morning at 7 o'clock. And I think their average age was just over 90. And they used to have a hell of a time. So this one day they went out, they played golf, came in, took a shower, played cards, and then went home. The next day, one of them goes into the pro shop and buys a little blue straw hat with a little yellow feather in it. And he wore it the next day, and everything was wonderful. He came in and took a shower, played cards, he went home. And when he went home, the other guys got the key from Willie, and they opened the locker, and they got this little hat, and they took it back to Bob, and they got it about 2 sizes larger. The little feather, the same hat, you know, put it in there. Next morning, the guy comes back, puts the hat on, and comes down over his ear. And he rushes back to Bob, who was in on the deal. Bob, I don't know what the hell happened. Oh, it's all right, don't worry about it. We'll find one. Here, try this. Yeah, that works great. So they go out and play golf, come back, take a shower, play cards, go home. Now the guys get the key from Willie. They open the locker, take the little straw hat back to Bob. They get one 2 sizes too small. So now he comes in the next morning and only can't put the hat on. So he's getting a little embarrassing, but he took it back to Bob, and Bob says, no problem, don't worry about it. So he gave him the right size, so they want to play golf, come in, take a shower, play cards, they go home. Now they went back, and they tried for the big one again. So this time it's getting a little embarrassing. He didn't want to take it back to Bob, so he took some toilet paper, wrapped it on the inside of the hat, went out and played golf, everything was fine. He came back, took a shower, played cards, and went home. So now they go back, they get the key from Willie, they get the hat, they take it back, and they get the little one again, they put the toilet paper around the little one. I don't know what happened after that. Believe it or not, it is. That's the only kind I tell. Anyway, pardon? You what? not the shoes.
Golf course, Bob.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was routine. That happened when some guy was late for a game. We used to call the ambulance and pick him up. Those were routine things. And there were 1,000 of them, and they were all wonderful, and I enjoyed the 50 years of playing golf. And the 60 years with my lovely bride. Thank you all for coming very much.
Mom, you got anything to say?
No.
We all want to hear.
Juanita, I think you are adorable. I think you're precious. And we all love you and appreciate you. God bless.
I can't resist public speaking. I mean, there are so many funny stories relating to those two that it just drive me crazy. I mean, when I was going through college, and they were starting. No, it's a true story. So I knew nothing about the ambulance business, and I certainly didn't know anything about answering the telephone. And at the early stages, the phone wouldn't ring, so he really didn't worry about me messing up. So he'd come back from the playing cards, and then he'd generally bring in some food, and we'd sit down, and all of us, Gary and Bonnie and Carol and I, we're all sitting down. And Bob always has a joke he always has a joke to tell. So, he'd be telling some joke. Juanita, at the very right moment, would say the most succinct remark that one could say that could draw a laugh. I mean, she would commend her presence would just sort of melt him down, and there was nothing that he could say to offset it. So we just sit down and we have dinner, but that's all we talk about is how Juanita had control of that dinner table. and the bottom line is for that particular night, no phones, they didn't ring, so he's saying to me, "You'll be here tomorrow, I gotta go back down to the valley." That's my story.
Cut the mic, please.
I have a very brief story. This goes back to my ambulance days, which was not that long ago, just about 30 years ago. Of course, at that time, I was gainfully employed, offered employment by my kind Uncle Bob and Aunt Juanita. And Bonnie, my cousin, would occasionally come over to the office when I was busy at work under the supervision of my boss, Carol. Unbeknownst to Carol, and with a full stack of cards for myself to do. That morning I was in accounts receivable. And Bob didn't tell me that there was over 100 accounts receivable fresh every morning. He neglected to mention that when he hired me. But anyway, Bonnie would come over and she'd stand at the door and she'd say, "Psst, psst." And eventually I'd turn around and she'd say, "Come on over, there's breakfast, Mom's making French toast." So I look around real quick, and Carol was not in sight. She was around the corner. So I would just kind of take off, and I go over there, and there was always wonderful smells coming from Juanita's kitchen. Jeannie would be in there, and the two of them would be busy as usual doing things, and Bob zooming in and out. And so it wasn't long before I would be enjoying a huge plate of food, sitting there, and then kind of disappear for a while into Bonnie's room. So I guess my absence was beginning to be noticed back there, but Juanita would always say, "Oh, you gotta eat. You gotta have a good breakfast to start the day off. So you come back here, you can come in here anytime you want to." And even Bob, he'd say hi as he went by. "Hi, how's it going?" "Oh, fine, I got my accounts." "Okay, bye." And so It was several visits after that all of a sudden my boss, Carol, came in with a rather serious look on her face, and she said, "I know you're enjoying Mom's French toast, but the accounts receivable is getting rather large at this point, and don't be looking to Bonnie to be your boss, okay? I'm the boss, and you need to get back to work." So I did, and it was a few months later when all of a sudden I found myself without a car. And I only had one car at that time. I was married, and my husband needed it to go down to Point Loma to work. So I would come from the South Bay, and I'd be taking several buses, and I'd be late getting there and whatnot, or else Roger would drop me off. And so all of a sudden one day I came in, a serious look on my face to Bob, and I said, "Bob, I'm not going to be able to work here anymore." And I said, it's getting too hard to get a ride here because it's too far away. So in his usual, impetuous thoughts, he blurts out, he says, "What's the matter?" And I said, "Well, I don't have a car, Bob. I thought you had one. You had one?" I said, "Well, I don't now. We've only got one car." "Well, is that all? If that's all it is, then we'll just go out and buy you a damn car." So Bob and Juanita, I'm here to say thank you for that offer, which I foolishly did not take you up on at the time. But I'm here 30 years later, eyeing that Lexus of yours, and I'm here to collect. So congratulations, and thank you for supporting me over all the years. I love you all.
Okay, who's next? Who's got a story? We want to hear all the stories tonight.
Jana.
Jana? Okay. Jana, we're going back to the days of Hartson's ambulance service.
Yes,
when we
way
were
back.
I'm just a little older than my sister, so
But younger than
Hartson's
me.
ambulance from the early days. I was walking down the street. I lived about a block away from 47th, and I was walking my son Paul, who was like about a year old, and they had just started Hartson's again, so it was in the garage, something like that. So I thought, I'll go see Carol and say hi. That was my first mistake. I walked in there with Paul, who's a baby, in the stroller, and Bob walks in and he goes, "Hey, how old's that kid?" And I said, "Well, Paul's about a year old." And he goes, "About time for him to go to school, isn't it?" I said, "No." And he goes, "Well, we really need you around here." So I'm looking around trying to escape, but there's really no escape. So then I said, "Well, I kind of already have a job. I'm working at the bank." And he said, "How much are they paying you there?" And I said, "Not a whole lot." And he goes, "Whatever it is, I'll pay you more. Actually, I need you here, and you can just find a school for the kid, preschool, they got those. Put him in the preschool, I'll see you Monday." So I really didn't know what to say, so I took Paul, we went home, and I'm thinking on the way home, gee, I think he expects me to be there. So maybe I could do something. So I looked up the preschool, and my son was, I think, one of the only kids that was completely potty trained by a little over a year old at the preschool. Because they told me just to bring him and bring a whole bunch of training kids, and they potty train him, and I went to work for Bob, and that was that, And so that story came up over the years to my son, and I said when he got accepted to med school, that was the story. I said, "Well, actually, your Uncle Bob had something to do with that, Paul, because you had like 3 years more school than any of the other kids." So, thank you, Bob and Juanita.
Jack, surely you have a story.
Jack has a story.
Great. I just had a senior moment.
Can't think of anything, huh?
Can't think of anything. Pass it down to Paul.
No, I think we need to hear from all the siblings, Eleanor. There's a story from growing up,
That's right. That's
I
right.
was not involved in the ambulance business.
No, but growing up as the younger sister.
There's too many stories about growing up with Bob. I'm sure he told one about the time when he sneaked into my clothes closet. He
No,
got behind all the clothes. You've all heard
I haven't heard that one.
No.
Really?
No, we've got to hear it.
Very young. And I guess, taken my bath, and maybe I was partially dressed, I guess. And I went in the closet, and I was standing there looking at my clothes, deciding what I should put on. All of a sudden, the clothes parted. This horrible scream. Well, of course, I screamed and ran out of the house. And that was Bob.
Of course.
I'll give it to Jack just a minute. Jack, why don't you tell them about the time you invited me down to Tijuana, 1955 for the Tijuana Open with all the pros, because you knew I played golf, and I could, over the air, exert my expertise, and right in front of God and everybody, you called me a fat blink. Why don't you tell them about
I wasn't too far wrong. Well, there are a lot of stories about Bob and his golf game, and I'm still having seen the moment on this other story, which is a really good story, honestly. I'll catch it pretty soon. Come back to me again if you will, please. It's a good story.
All right.
Now you better go ahead.
Aunt Marion, surely you have a story about your younger brother, right? No? Dorothy? Okay, Paul, it's yours. No, Paul, you can't. Go ahead.
Oh, check. Paul, give us one of those motorcycle stories. I always like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, if any of you have read my book, why anything I could tell you would be covered in completion there. That was $5 a piece, only you didn't have to pay. And then I only lost $7.50. I think they cost me $13.50 a copy. But just thinking of the few highlights of our relationship at home. Why, my mother used to always work like hell. Of course, the old story, my dad was gone from sun up till sundown. We never saw him at all, so all the work around the place we had to help my mom with, but she worked so damn hard. It was really a pleasure. So anyway, one day she asked me if I thought I could paint the bedroom. We had a one-bedroom house, I think, and a couple of little additions to take care of 5 gals and 2 guys and mom and dad. So I said, sure, the painting was no big deal. I think we called it calcimine in those days. You get this powder in a gallon of water, mix it up and slap it on. So I made the mistake of inviting Bob to help me do that, which was really not too good of thinking. So, while I was out of the room for a moment, why, he put his brush in the calcimine and he started writing his name all over the walls and other little messages. And so I think it took us 3 coats of paint to cover the damn writing. Then I remember my mother sitting out on the porch while he and I would do a little boxing out on the lawn. And I remember my mother having to tie us up with a rope to a fig tree out in the yard, which wouldn't be allowed nowadays, but it kept us off the street. And then I remember Bob once betting one of the neighborhood boys, I think it was either 2 pennies or something, that either one of them that could run across the hot asphalt. They were just starting to asphalt the streets. And we made it across, why maybe it was as much of a nickel because we used to mow lawns, so we're pretty well loaded. So I think Bob took him up on it and he made it across, but he was in bed for 3 or 4 days with blisters on his feet. Sometimes he didn't have very good judgment. So then we'd go out to mow lawns after school or on Saturday. We'd go through Kensington. And we had this dog that would come along with us. So one day on the way back, Bob hooked the grass catcher under the dog's collar, just horsing around. And the dog was scared because it hit him in the butt when he started walking. So pretty soon he was traveling at high speed. He tried to go through a hedge. And the dog flew up in the air. That was rather funny. So in later years, Bob always seemed to be able to live pretty high, even though he didn't have the money to back it up. So somehow or other, he got the down payment for I think it was a 1941 Pontiac Club Coupe, which was about the fanciest car in the whole area. And here he is out mowing lawns in Kensington, in Talmadge Park and the nicer areas, and he'd park that car out in front and turn the radio up real loud while he was jazzing around with the lawnmower. So then once during our career with the ambulance service, we had a call, a car had gone over the side of the hill off of, I guess it's called Middlesex, the last street that looks down in the Mission Valley. And so the guy was halfway down the hill, and it was kind of rough going down there, and we had finally got a rope, and we were hanging on the rope as best we could, and managing to pull this gurney up with this guy strapped to it, his broken leg or something. So when we get up at the top, why there were people helping us a little bit, and finally all of a sudden, Bob had been standing nearby, and the ground was kind of slippery. It was kind of that East San Diego Dobie, and this was at night, and it was probably a little damp. So all of a sudden, Bob, who was only dressed in gabardine slacks, I never saw him in work pants and all that. And so all of a sudden, his feet took out from under him, and he took off down that hill like a bullet. And somebody says, "There goes the ambulance man." So then, of course, they had to send some people down there to help bring Bob up, I suppose. So those kind of stories can go on and on, so I will probably better not do that. So I'll pass it along to someone else.
It's impossible to try to think up.
Yeah.
While I was thinking of this one story, I thought of another. But Bob used to play cards with two people out here at the club and make side bets from time to time. And once this partner, this poker playing partner, gin playing partner, Jim, said, "Well, I gotta go." And Bob said, "Where are you going?" I gotta go home. I said, "Well, where are you going? Where's home?" It says near El Cajon Boulevard and nearby street there. It says, Bob says, "I can beat you there." I said, "You mean you want to race?" He said, "Well, you go ahead. I'll give you a head start." And I said, "You're going to beat me and give me a head start." That's right. So the guy took off in his car in a flurry of dust. And Bob sat there and played another hand of poker. He went over to the phone and says, "Juanita, put a penny out there on the curb." Put a penny on, yeah. And this was the penny that the guy had to pick up to show that he got there first. But he didn't get there first because Bob picked up a penny. Juanita picked up a penny, and that was the end of the story. He won the race in the poker pot, too. Got another story about Bob would call me once in a while out of my stupor and say, "I need somebody in the other seat. We've got an accident out there in El Cajon, way out on near La Mesa." So I scrambled to my car with his ambulance. We got in and went about 70 miles an hour down El Cajon Boulevard. You ever watch Bob drive an ambulance? Yes. Then we got out to the accident scene. This car, the Monterey Forest thing. And the guy went off the road and jumped over a couple times and found the body. They thought it was a body. But loaded him in the ambulance and headed for the Mesa Hospital. As we were rolling this guy down the hallway toward the nurse's station, he sits up and says, "Where in the hell can a guy get a drink around?"
I came along rather late in the odyssey of the golf course story, but I will say this, that there came a time in Bob's life when he wanted to spread things out a little bit and do more with his business and everything else, and that's what I shined it up into that. But we did away with the putting green that he had there. So I was the guy that dug up the putting green. Anyway, long time ago, you'll all remember, and I think Paul had something to do with this, the original house that they built there and everybody was raised in, but right back in the back corner of it, for so many years, we had this little office and there were 2 desks in there, and that's when I first met Juanita. But I will never forget what was sitting on her desk. There was a little sign sitting around the front that says, "The Real Boss." And that's kind of, after I got to know Bob better, I thought, well, that's kind of, that's really a largesse to have a little sign that says "The Real Boss" when Bob's around. But anyway, to make a long story short, Juanita and I were able to turn the tables on Robert a few years after that. It was a great conspiracy because he wanted to build a new building and all this, but somewhere in the story we were going to build a place to live to replace the one down on the first floor. So the fun part about all this that he was, of course, about Saturday in the morning he would be busy with the ambulance business, and then of course at a certain hour of the day he's gone to the golf course. So after that, Juanita and I would take great fun in planning everything and figuring out how to fix the house and do all the things that went into it. And to make this a funny note, at the time up in Pacific Design Center, they had a lot of designers that were doing bedrooms. The hot culture at the time was an upholstered wall. Well, we decided that what we should do is upholster the walls of the bedroom. And this beautiful fabric and all this stuff. So he comes in one day and he says, well, you're doing what? And I said, well, she's sitting there all straight-faced in the same office. And well, Bob, we're going to upholster the walls. He says, upholster the walls? And well, why would you do that? And the obvious reference was that it would be a nice little padded cell for him, so we had a few laughs out of that when he teased you about it. But to this day, it's a very quiet place because the walls are upholstered, so you can go in there and have solitude, and that was Juanita's great victory among many others. The great conspiracy of the Hartson house construction. Anyway, I think I couldn't miss putting in a word for another fellow who was around all that time, Ralph and Jeannie, because Ralph was Bob's erstwhile follower for so many years, and then all of the things that happened. But I'll tell you what, a lot of the stuff that you deal with every day around there, Ralph made. And I just think it's a good thing to remember in all those 60 years what help that everybody gave Bob money along the way. A lot of good people, and I swear I think they should have done it for a better couple.
I would simply like to mention that my memories of Bob and Juanita are really not humorous stories, so much as just really fond ones. I came to know them when before I was ordained a priest in 1977. I was assigned to our Sacred Heart Parish, which is the church that they were married in 6 years ago. And so that's a special place in both of our lives, but they were very gracious in extending themselves to me in friendship during that time. And the only humorous stories that I perhaps remember are ones that Bob shared with me that were in the confessional. I can't share those. So those are under the seal. So. But I would like to say, really on behalf of, nothing's been said about what Bob and Juanita have done over the years in terms of their support of many, many different things in the community, and also their tremendous support of the church and the priests and sisters that they have known over the years. And so I would simply like to say a word on behalf of all of us, how grateful we are. They're wonderful people of faith and an inspiration, I think, to those who know them in that way. And I'm very grateful for the years of friendship that they extended to me. And it's a pleasure and privilege to be here to celebrate 60 years tonight. Thank you.
I hate to
terrific evening. After Father Peters. But I must tell the story about the darling one here. When we were going together, every once in a while I'd call him to see if he was going to be somewhere, go somewhere. And I would meet him downtown. I lived at 16th and Broadway, and he lived at East. So I called him this one afternoon, and I said, I was being silly, so I changed my voice. And I said, oh, is Judith there? I asked, called some funny name. No, what number did you want? And I said, oh, I'm sorry, do I have the wrong number? And we got into a long conversation, me with my phony accent, and we decided that we would meet at Learners on Broadway or somewhere. I said, well, you can't come here. I'll meet you down there. How will I know you? You know. And I can forget what I said I was going to wear, but I knew what was it.
Let me just interject something. We were, quote, engaged at the time. She called me up and one thing led to another, and I didn't have the slightest idea. She fooled me. She said her name was Marie, and we agreed to meet downtown in front of Lerner's dress shop on 5th and C at 9 o'clock. But then Jules and I used to pick up Juanita, go to a show about 8 o'clock, 8:30 down to Broadway. So this time I called her and I said, my God, I'm tired and I went. How do I make it the early show? So I said, okay. So I picked her up about 6 o'clock, got her home about 8 o'clock, and well, see you tomorrow. Now we have the rendezvous. Now I'm telling this on myself. I go down to, dressed in my finest, she told me she'd have a red dress and high heels and this and that. So I go down there, and I got out of the car, and there she was, and she was smoking a cigarette, and she never smoked a cigarette in her life. And right away, I knew that I had been hacked. So there wasn't much more to that story, but I just thought I'd bring it to your attention that we were legally engaged at the time, and I was a little embarrassed.
He was very sorry and very sweet and adorable.
Okay, and you married him anyway, right? Okay. Now it's time for the family, the children. Bonnie, you ready?
All right.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that thank you for everybody that came so far down here. It's really special, really touched us. You drove in and flew in, and we're just so thankful that you could all be here tonight. It's just funny, it just hit me a few minutes ago. I thought, oh, right back kind of where I started when we were so young. We got to come down here and play golf, and there were so many other lessons though going on. It was Carol was wonderful.
That's not what you told me.
Way back then, no, but anyways, I just wanted to say thank you for all the lessons, and so proud of both of you, and so glad we could all be here tonight. There's a lot of love in this room, and thank you so much. Love you both, Mom and Dad.
Just flip that to
My turn. Okay. Well, I guess I have the job of doing a toast here, which I'll tell just a little bit of a couple of things first before we do that. But I'm very happy that we're having this here today. We had the 50th anniversary down at a restaurant in Mission Valley, and it was very nice. There was nothing, it was a great time. We had a wonderful time, but this is special to our family, this place here. This is, ever since I was 5 or 6, we used to come down here and I'd be playing golf. And my dad was so inventive even back then, because we'd be driving down in his car, and of course having the ambulance service, he'd have a two-way radio. And I guarantee you he's the only person in 1966 who could order breakfast from his car, and we'd walk in here and our breakfast would be there. Now he had a radio in there that was supposed to be used for emergency only, okay? So he would talk in code and he'd be going, 10, 19, 20, 27, scrambled eggs, and over easy, and I'm like, what? And sure enough, we'd get down here, and there's our breakfast waiting. Our tea time would be 7 o'clock, and we'd be pulling in at 10 to 7. I'd say, Dad, how are we going to eat breakfast? I thought don't worry about it. Sure enough, we'd come down, our food would be there. And everybody else would kind of look at us in amazement on how that, but we had so many fond memories here at the club. It was just, growing up here, playing golf, the social aspect of it too, meeting, having a lot of friends, because we came down here a lot and we had friends that we played in junior golf with, and so it's very special to have it here. I just want to say that. And again, thanks for everybody for coming, and as Bonnie said, especially those who came a few hundred miles here. That's very, very nice of you guys to do. And the other thing, I guess it's time so we can do a toast if everybody can pick up their glasses. We'll do a toast to my mom and my dad. And at this time, Dad, if you take your hand and place it on the table, right there. And Mom, put their hand on top, if you would. To my mom and dad, Bob and Juanita Hartson, and I want everybody to see this right now with my mom's and my dad there, because this is something that some of us in the inner circle always know that Mom always did have the upper hand. So. Now you all know. We love you guys very much. 60 years. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. 60 years. Not only those two, but having to deal with the kids and each other for 60 years. And Father, if we could take up a big enough collection, do you think we can get maybe one story out of the confessional for me? Just one? Just one? No. Oh, well, I tried. I tried. No, not one of mine. Not one of mine. Fortunately, those after I went to confessional a few times, I think most of those priests did leave the church and they transferred. So anyway, got transferred. We love you guys.
Okay, if I tell the Bonnie Garrett story?
Oh, okay. You're going to tell a Bonnie Garrett story. Here we go. Get the car, Bonnie, will you?
I think Bonnie was 7 and Gary was 5, something like that. Juanita and I were in the house, and all of a sudden we heard this loud screaming, and we ran out there. What's the matter? He told me to go to hell. So she grabbed Gary, took him in the house, sat down, put him over her knee, and he looked up and he said, "How many times are you going to hit me?" She said, "One for every letter." And she went, "H, E," instantly, not a sound. He never let a sound. L, L, and he looked up and it's only got one L in it. True story.
Spelling wasn't my forte. I tried.
Oh, mine. Well, if anybody else has
I
anything
can
to say,
but see, the mic's way down there.
Absolutely.
I'll meet you halfway.
Bless Alana for joining our family. We are so lucky. Oh, that's right. Oh, I don't know about that, but I do have a good story. When Gary was talking about his mom having the upper hand, Gary and I hadn't been married very long. When I was I used to work with her in the office and we'd sit across from each other. And we got to talking one day and I said, "What do you do? They're both so bossy. They're always telling you what to do. How have you dealt with that all these years?" She said, "Lanny, you know what? There's nothing to it. You gotta be tricky. The whole thing is sneaky,
sneaky, sneaky. That's what she'd say to me. That's it. That's the key. She said, what you do is you make them think it's all their idea. And when they think it's their idea, oh, they'll run with it. But if they think it's your idea, forget about it. But she said, you gotta make them think it's their idea. That's the way it works. And she was right. It was the best bit of advice she ever gave me. So indeed, I thank you for that. And that's my funny story. I love you very, very much.
Last chance. Oh, here it is, one more story.
No, it's not a story. It's just, you know, everybody's talked about Bob, and we could tell story after story after story, concerning him. But Juanita taught me one of the most important lessons that I have ever learned. And they were continually helping us get through the early years of schooling and no money and back problems and everything like that. And so, we never knew how do you repay that. We were young, they were old. But, we're always taking. And one day, I was expressing my concerns about this, and I'll never forget this. And we taught this to our children, both Corey and Michael, constantly. She said, all you have to learn is to say thank you. When someone does something nice for you, just say thank you. Doesn't require anything else. And that's the most important lesson that I've learned. I pass it on to my children, and I don't know how many times in a year that I tell somebody, just say thank you. And Juanita, I want to thank you for teaching me that important lesson.
All right.
I am the sole representative of the grandchildren here tonight. And, given the personalities among us, it's quite a responsibility. But I want to thank you for being wonderful grandparents, not only to myself, my sister Corey, but also to the younger generation, Robbie and Aria. It's been a pleasure and a joy watching them interact with you. And I think that that sort of typifies kind of my experience, as you two have provided a window for the family, for me, through the stories that you're well known for telling of my mom and all my relatives and my dad and my mom, but also beyond that to Alfredo Baca and the heritage of the family. So that means a tremendous amount to me. 60 years, I think, speaks for itself. And certainly the endurance through trials and tribulations, and steadfast commitment that's exemplified by your relationship, I think characterizes the family as a whole. Thankfully, I think we've all been through a lot, and we all have a lot, and hopefully that's celebrated tonight. So thank you, and love you very much.
You upstage me again, boy.
It's hard to do. You should all be so lucky.
Thank you. Well, we'd love to invite you to stick around. There's dessert, there's coffee, there's fellowship, but most of all, there's gratitude on behalf of my mother and father, and my sister and brother, and all of our family and friends. Thank you so much for coming and sharing this very special day for this very special couple. 60 years is quite an accomplishment, and I'm sure you all agree. Congratulations are in order.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Marvelous idea. I think it's a marvelous idea. And to be able to share this evening with all our friends and relatives,
Well,
I get you home, it's really.
well, Mom, now that tonight is come and gone here, or almost gone, have you thought about what he's going to be thinking about now? The last 2 months, Dad has really been looking forward to this night and involving
Yes.
us all in it.
Actually, Dad planned this whole evening, wrote the article for the paper.
Yes.
His idea, his program, his seating arrangements, his menu, his choice of night. Anything else I'm forgetting?
70th, Bob, the 70th.
I thought you were talking about the next one. I was gonna say, if we go another 10 years, it's gonna be a hell of a time changing that to
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
I already called it. Oh, let me go collect those.
All right.
Oh, well, you might.
No, I'm just.
That card there is for, the book that she's putting together, she took a picture of you, that's, write something on it, and that'll be next week.
Oh, they got some good stuff over there.
Yeah? You sure it's still there? It might have gone.
I have.
You ever had the dessert table?
Well, actually, Roxy married it. It was mostly absurd rumors, and Carol claimed that of course she was No, she said she'd play with you guys, maybe. If you guys don't argue and cause a Oh, you should have the two boys married. Okay. We decided that we'd tell her before and the rest of the time. She got married. And then Roxy had it. She was ready to go to war and her phone. She was married for 3 years. She had done dating with Mary. Mary was quite so she, of course, had Roxy. So Roxy had all of her bottles in a plastic bag. She opened it up. Like, we think we're going to fall asleep. Like, now. Mary's like, oh, fine. Yeah. Yeah, there's always fellow women and anyway, so they were on the next one. So they all chimed in. Yeah. I told him that we would, I told him, yeah, big nice. It's not that should be done. What else? Of course, they got upset. This way we all get along. But we split. But it was, they did on given days. They played this. Mary's on passing shots. And Kim hit on the God, it's one to read. But then Mary gets very upset with Sophie. And actually, some days it's really on. So then what'll happen is Roxy will serve, and her second serve is an automatic draw. So Roxy will get ready to serve the second serve, and as she's serving, she'll tell Mary. It's really funny. And then she'll charge the net. So, okay, I have two options. So I decided that even with Roxy, we're going to Mary, I just try to pass Roxy. She's so worried about Mary that I can usually get a pass to her. So then Mary goes, thank you so much. She's so nice.
B. Howard? Howard H. Or Howard D. I don't know.
He won the US Open twice.
I think he has 6.
Yeah.
Sign right there.
Oh. So my dad was, he was,
And I want you to help take pictures right here. Don't flash.
He's in, Howard is in the 8th.
Hold on, my dad is real low. You know what? Wait, oh, it's the stupid battery. Okay, it's coming, come on. It's gonna be a double flash when we get done.
Smile, Gary.
Come on, Gary.
Show your teeth.
No, really, yeah, the battery's going, I gotta change it, but I can't change it until the film comes out. Hold on. Oh, shoot, you know what? Let's try under the light.
Gary hasn't smiled that much.
But by the time I felt like they see me, I was slow down. So it's nice, like you follow
called the